You're listening to Guides for Brides, the wedding podcast. I'm Amelia.
And I'm Nikita, and we're so excited to discuss all things weddings with you.
Yes, we'll be covering trends, practical planning tips, and more. And of course, we'll have a few special guests along the way.
Thanks for joining us. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to a brand new season of Guides for Brides, the wedding podcast.
Hello everyone. Yes, we have concluded our sessions about the planning essentials, and now we're moving on to season 2, which is going to discuss some more focused topics.
Absolutely. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to stop giving you those practical planning episodes. In fact, we do have a few lined up in this season, but it just means we can start talking more about specific points of interest.
Yes, and thank you to those of you who have emailed us with your content suggestions and requests. They have all been taken on board.
Yeah, it's actually been really nice to hear back from you all out there. It makes it feel a little bit less like we're talking to ourselves. So on to today's episode. We're kicking off season 2 with what will be a really interesting discussion point all about historic wedding venues.
Yes, and historic wedding venues are certainly growing in popularity, and what better way to discuss them than with someone who actually works in one?
Yes, welcome to our lovely guest Fran, who is joining us today from Farnham Castle.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for inviting us to speak today. I'm really excited.
Hi Fran, it's lovely to have you with us and to have your expert insights in today's discussion. But before we get started, would you like to introduce yourself and your venue to our lovely listeners?
Of course. So I've personally been working within the British wedding industry for 16 years. I can't think of a better industry to work in. I've actually seen both sides of the industry. So the planning and advice and directory side, and now the venue side. So it's great to have seen the industry from both angles. As a venue, Farnham Castle really is a hidden gem. I spent my early 20s living on Castle Street, which is actually just below the castle, but I'd never ventured up here until just a few years ago. And I can't believe what was behind the castle walls. I mean, this venue is incredible. I'm really proud to be able to talk about such a special historic location, and we can throw the most sensational weddings. And I'm really excited to be chatting about this with you today.
Perfect. Now, we've got lots of questions to ask you all about historic wedding venues. So should we get started?
Sounds great.
Perfect, let's dive into those historical venues.
So, Fran, historical wedding venues obviously come in all sorts of shapes, styles and capacities, but obviously all have that history aspect in common. Now, do you need to actually love history in order to appreciate or even choose a historical venue?
It's a really good question. So no is the answer, which is why we would always encourage couples to come and visit us so they can appreciate the venue's true value. During your initial stages of searching for any wedding venue, I'd always say do your research, browse brochures and listing sites, obviously like Guides for Brides, social media and, for example, certain hashtags on Instagram, look at Pinterest, get an idea of what you're looking for in a historic venue, and then everything will fall in place when you go to do your visits. I really need to stress that nothing will compare to seeing a venue in person. So it's much like when you walk into your dream house for the first time, or like the minute you lay eyes on the person you're about to marry, it's all the same. Yes, this is the one feeling.
Yes. And it may seem like an obvious question, but what aspects classes a venue as being historic? Is it simply age, or is there different elements that can attribute that venue to being, air quotes, historic?
Okay, so age is the main signifier, but the venue may have historical significance such as an event or someone of importance who lived there, despite being slightly younger than what you may consider to be a historic age. So Farnham Castle was actually built by William the Conqueror's grandson, Henry de Blois, and the venue's been hosting kings and queens for hundreds of years. But it's apparent from the moment you approach the castle and through the castle gates that you're about to visit somewhere very rare and exciting. So if you're looking for a wow venue to begin married life and you want to make your guests feel really special, you should certainly consider a historic venue like Farnham Castle.
I think one of the most common assumptions people make about historic venues is that they're either somewhere that's difficult to reach or could be out of their price range. Are those assumptions correct?
So in terms of being in places that are difficult to reach, historic venues are dotted all over the country and typically found in very easy to reach locations. So for example, we're perfectly located in Farnham. We're close to motorways and we're just an hour on the train line from London. Locations, yeah, it's a great location, but location is certainly something to consider because you want your guests to be able to find your venue with ease. Then there's the question of choosing wedding venue, possibly with somewhere to get ready in the morning before your wedding, which we have in the form of our bridal preparation gatehouse. And then as well as accommodation that your guests, accommodation so that your guests don't have to travel home at the end of the night, which we also have here at Farnham Castle. And the question about the price range, you might be surprised. So the main signifier of historic venues is their age, but there's so many different types of historic venues around the country that you're surely going to find one within your price budget. Every venue will cost things differently in regards to what's included. Obviously what's included in the venue hire and the different menus that they offer. So be sure to build a great relationship with the venue team and receive as much information as you can before making any decisions.
And now obviously historic venues often do have much of their original features. So are these historical venues actually safe buildings, and are they limited for things like disabled access, things like that?
That's a really good question. So historic obviously means that it was originally built a long time ago, but over time, historic buildings have been restored. So we're continually modernising and updating our venue, both on the inside and outside, and the venue's regularly checked for health and safety as well. But Farnham Castle is so old, some of the surfaces are cobbled and uneven in some areas, but we always have staff on hand to welcome guests, and we'd certainly pre-arrange any disabled access for guests who required that, including access to our bedrooms. But that's the beauty of hiring a historic venue, right? We have 33 bedrooms on site at Farnham Castle to pre-book. These are located all over the grounds, so we'll always ensure that guests are located in the best appropriate room for their needs.
And lots of people perceive historic venues and castles to be cold and dark, and so understandably may be worried about choosing a historic venue for their wedding if their preferred season is autumn or winter, obviously where it gets darker earlier and is cold anyway. Is this perception true? And if so, how is that problem solved?
Okay, so I obviously can't speak for every historic wedding venue, but when it comes to Farnham Castle, for example, you won't believe how bright the venue is. It's actually a photographer's dream. So our most popular wedding ceremony room, our lantern hall, features 5 lancet windows that let in floods of light. And then above where the guests sit, it's so pretty. Above where the guests sit is an actual lantern, which shines light down. So it's a really, really stunning room. And then our great hall, where the wedding receptions take place, has 3 huge stained glass windows. So you can imagine how bright that room is. Wow. And then in regards to autumnal and winter weddings, we've experienced snow at Farnham Castle just recently in January. So it was the most magical setting we've ever seen. It was just stunning.
I can imagine it being so beautiful.
And then obviously the evenings get darker earlier during these months, and the castle can be illuminated with amazing fairy lights to wow your guests. So there's always ways around brightening up a venue. But as I mentioned earlier, venues tend to be modernised as time goes on. So worrying about whether or not your guests are going to feel comfortable should actually be non-existent. So during the summer months, the historic walls actually make the venue feel cooler. And then during the winter months, when the heating's on, it's lovely and cozy. And actually, we love it when couples pre-order like a surprise hot chocolate bar for their evening guests and, embrace the season, really. So
absolutely. You've got to embrace that sort of season, haven't you?
Of course.
Amazing. So moving on to things like decor. Now, personally, when I think of a historic venue, I think of something that is naturally beautiful and probably doesn't need a lot of work to look perfect for a wedding. I mean, like you just said, with the gorgeous windows and the lanterns. Does that dictate how the couple can decorate the venue? And, are there any restrictions with what they can do?
Character and detail are naturally apparent in historic venues, and this can sometimes mean that you don't need to invest in adding too much decor yourselves. But obviously, if you did want to add your own floral enhancements or decor to the venue, there's plenty of unique locations to do this. So at our venue, the Fox's steps, which are the steps leading up to the castle from the front, look really lovely, decorated with lanterns or flowers as your guests are entering the venue. And then you'll have your confetti shot on these steps as well, so your guests will flow out onto them in the evening, so decor there also looks stunning.
Oh, amazing.
So pretty. And then our stone hall is like the hub of the venue, where your guests will enjoy your drink reception and your evening reception. So you'll probably cut your cake there as well, and it's always nice to have a card box and gift table, which you may want to decorate. And then you'll more than likely want to add floral decor to the lantern hall, so like we were talking before, down the aisle, and then the windowsills of the lancet windows for your ceremony. And then in our great hall, we've got a huge historic fireplace, which looks amazing, decorated with flowers. And then we've got a chandelier that hangs from the centre of the room, so we've seen the most amazing floral installations there as well.
Oh, wow.
And the stained glass windowsills look, lovely with flowers. So I think every venue is obviously very, there's loads of character in historic venues, so you've got to see them and then, maybe bring a florist in and have a chat with them. But the only difference between a historic venue and any other type of venue is the length of time ago that it was built. So any other aspect can be adapted to suit your ideal wedding theme. We'd be very happy, obviously, to speak to suppliers in advance if there was ever a doubt in regards to what you wanted to use to enhance the venue. So no one should ever discount a historic venue or think, oh, I can't have what I want there, because we are very adaptable. We can put on the best party that you're looking for. We want to work with couples to make their dream wedding.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the point you've made about enhancing the features with decor is you do need to go and see the venue before you can decide what features you want to enhance.
100%.
Yeah.
Of course.
And so couples are obviously faced with the choice of selecting probably a single venue from various different styles of venues that we have here in the UK, and there are a vast amount of different styles of wedding venues. Why would you encourage someone to choose a historic wedding venue over a different style, such as a hotel, a barn, or even a manor house?
Okay, so this is a really good point, Nikita, and you're right, because there are around 3,000 amazing wedding venues dotted all around the UK, but England's known worldwide for its history, and no two castles in the world are the same. So you'd be inviting your guests to a style of wedding venue that they may never have seen before. We also love here that your love story is taken to another level on the day of your wedding. It's almost like the start of your own family history, which ties
so
in.
romantic.
Yeah,
That's such a
perfectly. So it ties in perfectly with getting married in an historic venue. But we would certainly obviously encourage couples to visit a short list of wedding venues, because seeing the venue, like we said, in person is completely different than what you see online. And as soon as you're able to, we'd highly recommend, booking in visits, not only to see the venue in person, but also to secure the date that you really want. And I think people, TV shows like Bridgerton have made historic wedding venues incredibly desirable.
Absolutely.
They were originally designed for parties, many years ago, and can be totally personalised to your wedding, like we just said.
Amazing. I think actually when I think of Bridgerton, all I think of is glamorous balls and, feeling really special, a special kind of party. I'm not sure if Amelia would agree.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, that's amazing.
Well, all the rooms here, they're big rooms, they were designed for big parties, and, what a better way to celebrate a wedding than having a massive party.
Great Gatsby style.
Yeah. Yes, we love a themed wedding here as well, actually.
Yeah.
So, Fran, what's your favourite thing about historical wedding venues in general?
Wow, okay. So historical wedding venues are just completely unique. Every venue with history is going to be different from the next. I mean, for example, the view that we have from our castle is just incredible over our town. The grounds, so we sit on 5 acres. That is just lovely grounds for your guests to explore, but also for your wedding photographer to walk around with you.
Lovely.
Really nice, really pretty. We've got a historical keep actually at the back of Farnham Castle where couples can have access to go up there with their photographer. So you're not going to get wedding photography in any other venue like you will do a historical venue. And then also I really love that, none of your friends would probably have chosen such a unique venue. So you're definitely going to have that edge. You're going to be inviting, people to a venue they really haven't been to before, or a style of venue they may not have been to before. So, and also that's going to reflect in your wedding photography for many years in the future. You're always going to look back, you're always going to remember your wedding venue in years and years and years to come, and choosing something that has been sitting here for years and years, it's just magical. And I think you can't appreciate it. You can't appreciate any wedding venue until you, like we've said before, you have to go see them. And then when you get there, you walk in, you realize, wow, this has been standing here for hundreds and hundreds of years. So many people have celebrated in these rooms in the past, and it's just wonderful. And the character is so apparent from the minute you approach our gates. The turrets are amazing. Like I said, the view from every angle of this castle, actually, from the grounds to the library where you have breakfast the following morning, everything is just amazing. And also the bedrooms, for your guests to stay the night, having bedrooms on site. Not every venue is going to have that, but we do have that on site. So it's not a day, it's almost 24 hours that you're experiencing in the castle. So your guests may not have stayed in a castle before. I mean, have you guys ever stayed in a castle before?
I haven't actually stayed in a castle before. And I think it might be on the bucket list.
Yes.
It's definitely one of those things, isn't it? That character and sort of I don't think novelty is the right word, but like the novelty of like never having stayed in a castle. You kind of you'd feel a bit like a princess, I think, on your wedding day if you're...
I think that's actually what you just raised is a really good point, because I think sometimes people think castle wedding venue, I need to, it needs to be fairy tale style, or I need a massive dress to go with it. It's actually not. We would more than happily welcome a fairy tale theme, but you do not have to have that type of wedding. Historic venues, the rooms are large, there's lots of character and style, beautiful windows, and sort of everywhere you look you can see something unique, but that doesn't mean that you can't bring in modern lighting and evening entertainment. We've got room for dance floors and bands and unique musicians. Just because it's a historic venue, you don't think that you can't have the wedding day that you want, because we can do absolutely anything and have held the most incredible weddings here at Farnham Castle. All of them unique, all of them, stand out in some way or another. And every couple, as we know, they're unique in themselves, and they've all got their own ideas, and there's hundreds and hundreds of suppliers willing to help make it a dream wedding. So it's just do your research, do lots of chatting, visit as many venues as you can, and you'll be surprised. You really will be surprised.
Awesome. And so would your recommendation for a couple to be like, obviously they've done their research, they've come to you, do they just tell you exactly what they're thinking? Is that what you recommend? Just go to them, just speak to them about all your dreams and wishes, and just see what they can do?
I feel actually that couples are a little overwhelmed when they first start their wedding planning, because they obviously go on all of the
absolutely.
Wedding
especially if you've never planned a wedding before.
And the majority, very, very, very high percentage of people are doing this for the first time. So, couples are faced with so many different wedding venues to look at, so many different styles, so many different color schemes. What are my bridesmaids going to wear? You know, all their friends are throwing questions at them, and it can feel really overwhelming when you first do get engaged. So, you know, I almost think couples should think, you know, chat between them about the type of day they want, and obviously the season potentially. Then visit venues and have the venue tell them what they do best. Okay. You know, so we know how weddings work perfectly here. We know, you know, the timings, and we can advise on ceremony space and absolutely everything from, you know, brides can arrive with us at 8 o'clock in the morning to get ready in our gatehouse. And then, you know, obviously the guests and everybody else arrives a bit later on, but, you know, having the time and the space, but without visiting venues or doing your research, you wouldn't know that, you know. Yeah. So it's you know, really talk to venues and get lots of brochures, get lots of information. And when you do your visits, have the staff or have the person showing you around, your venue expert, venue specialist showing you around, and take the information in from them, because they know what they're doing. They do weddings all the time, and that's their expertise, their field of expertise. So, you know, take advice from the venues, and then go from there, I'd say.
Perfect.
It's a really good point you make, actually, because really couples don't need to know everything about planning a wedding, and even reading something like blogs about coming up with your wedding budget. I mean, that can be overwhelming in itself. It's not an easy task.
Certainly. I mean, so that is a really good point. So couples may have an idea in mind of what they want to spend on their wedding day. And actually, we always think the venue and the food is one part, and then all your dress and your decor and your flowers is obviously separate. If you have that idea of how much you want to spend on the venue and the food element of your day, you obviously have that in mind. But if you walk into a dream venue that is slightly over your budget, don't discount it, because the venue, like I said earlier, is going to stay with you for the whole of your married life. You're always going to see it in your photographs. You're always going to remember it as a couple. You're always going to talk about it. Your guests, if it's a great day, will talk about it as well. You know, so it's worth spending. I'm a firm believer of you get what you pay for. And, you know, it is so worth spending a little bit more to get your dream venue than to discount it. Because yes, it's one day, but it is the most amazing day you'll ever have. And Absolutely. The following morning, you won't want the night to end. You won't. No one's going to want to leave the castle.
I think Amelia can vouch for that statement as well, with the, you know, it's the most amazing day. It is one day. It's just the biggest day.
Yeah, honestly, you don't want it to end at all. Okay, Fran, final question for you, and it's about food.
Arguably the best kind of question.
Absolutely. So obviously we've just touched on actually having like a theme or something. If I wanted to go all out on a historical theme that not only matches the history of the venue, but maybe even, you know, you want to match your wedding food to that kind of time period or style, who would essentially help me with that? Would it be the venue coordinator or an external caterer?
Okay, so it really depends on the venue. So we'd recommend speaking to the person giving you your tour about this right from the beginning, because the venue may have specific caterers they work with, or have a team of in-house chefs like we do here at Farnham Castle. So we have a choice of splendid menus here, created by our head chef Simon Lloyd, who's been with us for over 17 years. So his dedication is just incredible. Yeah. You know, he cooks with locally sourced produce, but if there was anyone that wanted to adapt their menus, we'd be more than happy to chat, you know, with the couples to make their menu perfect. And our wine lists are also paired with our menus. So if you're a real foodie couple, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, we do love a wine list that's been paired with different meals. Oh, that's lovely. Fran, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. We really look forward to hearing from lots of guides for brides couples in the near future.
Oh, that's great. And it's been a really interesting discussion today, and always good to get an expert's point of view.
Absolutely. And of course, you can find the link to Farnham Castle's listing on Guides for Brides in the show notes. And if you want to learn more about weddings at this venue, of course, if you're not in the Surrey area, you can filter by historic wedding venues on Guides for Brides Venue Finder as well.
Yes, and as always, those show notes will also have links to other resources on our site that you may find useful following the discussion. So go head over to guidesforbrides.co.uk/podcast.
And we will be back in a couple of weeks discussing gift lists.
Yes, looking forward to that one. And don't forget to follow us on social media too if you haven't already. That's at Guides for Brides.
We'll chat to you all again soon. Bye.
Bye.